Welcome to Postcards, a brief look at people, places, the arts and curiosities from around the world. On today's program, all the colour from the Henley Royal Regatta. Semi-tropical plants thriving on the Isle of Wight. Anglers the world over tackle the king of fish in the queen of salmon rivers. Showcasing the latest innovative creations by young designers. And finally, a curious alternative for high-altitude training. First up, this was how it was done in Roman Britain. In fact, this was the sort of activity you would have seen on the streets of London in the year 100. Using tools and materials only available to the Romans, these modern-day artisans are recreating a slice of life on High Street Londinium for a new exhibition at the Museum of London. The museum plans to reconstruct to detailed Roman specifications buildings which originally stood at what is now number 1 Poultry Street, part of the museum's excavations before the City of London site was redeveloped. Via Decumana was the main road of the then Roman metropolis, but if you think it was all stone buildings and toga-clad locals tripping off to mosaic-lined baths, think again. In its early years, it would have been a bit like a Wild West town, with foreign traders and merchants coming in to sell their produce, and native Britons coming to the towns to make their fortunes. Buildings would have been clay and timber, their floors would have been just earth, and the roads would have been gravel, hastily made by the army. Ecce Lucerna, the Latin for oil lamp. The Fortis brand was a household name in the Roman provinces. Marked on the base of the lamp and backwards in the mould, Fortis was a lamp maker from Mutina in Gaul, today's Provence. Towards the end of the 1st century, his factory's lamps were so popular they were copied by other potters across the Roman Empire. Visitors will be able to see a fully operational bakery, a cafe, carpenter's workshop and pottery. A Roman recipe that has survived to today is being followed to make this cheesecake. The ingredients are familiar: eggs, flour, cheese and a handful of raisins. Cooked on coals in a clay oven, the Roman version of this sweet treat would have differed only in texture. Less refined flour would have made for a coarser cake. Roman London was founded in about 50 CE on a greenfield site. Unlike Colchester and St Albans, it wasn't Roman expansion of an existing Iron Age town. Visitors will soon be able to stroll its reconstructed streets. Henley, on the picturesque upper reaches of the River Thames. For 5 days in the summer, it's a magnet for coloured blazers, outrageous hats and extravagant picnics, and a little rowing too. But don't be deceived by the faintly Edwardian atmosphere here. Henley Royal Regatta is a serious sporting event. In fact, it's one of the top international regattas in the world. Rowers of all ages, from schoolboys to Olympic champions, compete here for an array of cups and medals. Universities are pitched against schools, amateurs against professionals. Teams from overseas compete just to take part. Most of the American collegiate crews are here because they were champions in their home competitions. Henley is seen as a reward for a championship season. The crews work hard all fall, winter and spring to win the races that will get them to Henley. Just as the training is serious and thoroughly modern, so the technology of boat building is state-of-the-art. Lightweight carbon fibre has replaced traditional wooden oars and hulls. Rowers are constantly searching for the perfect combination of shape and material to give them a winning edge, but it's only an edge. Andy Card, coach of the Yale University lightweight crew, believes the human body is the most complex and the most difficult piece of technology to get right. Former Olympic gold medalist Greg Searle takes time out from his preparations for the Sydney Olympics to christen, in traditional style, a new boat for a London-based amateur rowing club. While rowing is now a professional sport, he thinks Henley will remain firmly an amateur event. Good funding from the lottery has put them in a position where they can now compete on a level playing field. but he thinks anything more would unnecessarily spoil the club. A rather unfashionable view of what motivates top sportsmen and women in this age of big money and performance-enhancing drugs. But there's plenty of evidence at Henley that it is indeed friendship, not money, that can drive people to stretch themselves to the utmost. Perhaps the best of the Edwardian era still survives here. The Isle of Wight, just off Britain's south coast, is a favourite holiday spot. Nearly 3 million people visit the island every year. Some are drawn by the action-packed week of world-class yacht racing at Cowes. For others, it's a traditional attraction to the British seaside holiday. The island, only 12 miles north to south and 23 across, is renowned for its sunny climate. At Ventnor, a small town nestling at the southern end of the island, an unusual botanical garden is proving popular with visitors. A quirk of the local climate allows semi-tropical plants to thrive here. The gardens, laid out on the site of a disused hospital, are an important part of the local economy. Visitor attractions such as the Ventnor Botanic Gardens are very important, not only to tourists but to the island's economy. The arrival of 2.7 million tourists creates 1 in 4 of the island's jobs in total. From Easter onwards, visitors have been able to do a lot more than look round the gardens. A new $2.8 million US visitor centre includes a library, study centre and both permanent and temporary exhibitions, and a pleasant place to sit out of the occasional rain. The permanent exhibition describes the history of plant life and its impact on our lives. With its mix of public education, study facilities and its range of plants from distinctly un-British climes, the Botanic Gardens are like a mini version of Kew, the world-famous Botanic Gardens in West London. The gardens include areas of plants from New Zealand, the Americas and the Mediterranean, and themed areas like medicinal and culinary borders. And with their own microclimate, the gardens can stay open to visitors throughout the year. Salmo salar, or the Atlantic salmon, the king of fishes and the quarry of anglers all over the world. And this is the queen of salmon rivers, the River Tweed, on the borders between England and Scotland. The quiet town of Alnwick in Northumberland is the seat of the Duke of Northumberland. It's also home to one of the most famous fishing tackle manufacturers in the world, the House of Hardy. It all began at this shop in 1872, when William Hardy set up as a gunsmith. There were several brothers who worked in the business, and over the years their passion for angling took over, and Hardy's became synonymous with quality fishing tackle. Today the headquarters are purpose-built on the outskirts of town, and Hardy's is a major local employer and exporter. A museum which is virtually the history of fly fishing, with early split cane and green heart rods. Reels, including the perfect range, have stood the test of time and now fetch good prices at auctions. And the Hardy brothers surrounded themselves with experts, including several top fly tyers from Scotland. The art of fly tying was the basis of one of their most famous departments, but cheap imports killed the business. The company has always changed with the times and has a large export trade to the traditional markets of Australia, Canada and South Africa, as well as to most of Europe and the newer markets in the US and South America. In the old days, the fishing tackle was made by hand and was very labour intensive. Today, much has been taken over by modern technology. But it's combined with handcrafted skills. Hardy's is the biggest employer in the area, and they have 3 generations of family working here. Rather than bringing in new skilled people, the skills are handed down. And it's this highly skilled workforce which continues to produce world-beating tackle. Carbon fibre rods have revolutionised angling, and a new generation of rods increase accuracy, distance and enjoyment of fly casting. The rod blank is covered in epoxy resin varnish which protects it. Every rod which leaves the factory has a handwritten signature and a number. Catherine Pearson has been signing off the rods for years. The final check to make sure everything is perfect is done by George Tennant. They look to see the reel fits properly, the transfer logo is done correctly and the rod fits up properly. The finish is checked and finally they try the action of the rod. For purists and collectors, Hardy still make their traditional split bamboo rods, which predate carbon fibre. The bamboos are imported from China and the rod is a delight. Bamboo strips are bonded together to form a perfect hexagon. The featherlight instrument is capable of casting a fly like thistledown to the waiting trout. Perfection doesn't come cheap. These split bamboo rods retail at about $1,500 US. Reels are also a specialty, and this is the place where new designs are turned into reality. Charlie Norris is the design manager. In early 1990, they introduced the Gold Sovereign. Charlie says it was a big jump up in terms of performance and quality, and has been their most successful reel to date. Hardy reels are known for their simplicity of design and workmanship. The ultralight sells all over the world, and the Hardy Perfect, which was patented in 1892, is still in production today. There's nothing quite like the distinctive sound of the Hardy reel. And it's all brought together here on the casting pool. And in earnest on the Tweed. The Junction Pool is probably the most famous salmon pool in the world. In high season, 5 rods pay a total of $33,000 a week to fish it. There's a waiting list. Part of the attraction is you never know what you're going to catch or how big the salmon will be. There's always the chance of landing a once-in-a-lifetime specimen or even more. Gavin Brown, second gilly on the Junction Pool, tells the story of Robert Beattie and his fishing party. After an early morning start and no success, everyone returned to the hut. Beattie went back to the pool in the afternoon and failed to return by 6 p.m. They discovered him at the hotel with a great big smile, standing with a 43-pounder, a 28 and a 29, and to this day he still says he lost a bigger fish. The Tweed is the sort of river which anglers dream about. And this is where the dream starts. For more than 100 years, the Hardy Fishing Shop in the heart of London has been an oasis of calm for anglers amid the roar of city traffic. So what makes salmon such an attractive catch? Nick Armstead, manager of Hardy's Fishing Tackle Shop in London, says it's a combination of a beautiful fish and the most beautiful rivers in the most remote and beautiful parts of the world. Dr. Michael Champ, oceanographer and angler, says it's a disease. It's fun, and regardless of whether or not you catch a world record, it's still a challenge and great competition between your friends. Anglers from all over the world drop in to chat and view the latest tackle. Game fishing is an important industry in Britain, but for the enthusiast, it's more important than that. It's a way of life. Consider for a moment all those gadgets we take for granted that make our lives easier. The mobile phone, the ever-ready umbrella, but somebody somewhere dreamt them up, invented them. And the temptation is to think the inventors were men. Maybe they were, but in Britain, women are being encouraged to show that where necessity is concerned, there are plenty of mothers of invention, and they deserve public recognition. Elizabeth Juniper invented Runaway. It was a relatively simple answer to a very common problem. What to do with a laddered stocking and no time to change into spares. This little bottle is now a must for every busy woman. And how often have we despaired of the dripping teapot? Engineers and scientists have been working on this for a long time, so inventor Damini Kumar took the solution upon herself as a challenge. And as with most successful inventions, it's really quite simple.
The teapot spout shape works in 3 different ways. The innovative step is just this simple groove on the underside of the spout. It's solid. When you start pouring, the spout is being narrowed, so this speeds up the flow, and as it comes out, it doesn't cling to the surface. When you tip back, the barrier on the inside breaks off the flow, so there's no dripping.
Drips of a different kind, and just as infuriating when they leave an unsightly stain on the new carpet. Mandy Haberman invented the Anyway Up cup. She explains how it works.
There's a little membrane valve which is moulded in just underneath the surface of the spout. So I have a little drink. Liquid flows. Take it upside down. It's completely leak-proof.
It's the very thing that success is made of. 7 million cups have already been sold, and there's no let-up yet. Still thinking invention? Imagine a quiet lie down on a massaging bumpy bed. Or if it's something a little more practical you're after, what about these child-proof pots? They're all among the latest innovative creations by Britain's brightest young designers, final year students from the South Bank University in London. Most of the designs on display are working prototypes. Here, designer Lex Adotti has created a simulator to help dermatologists train in laser treatment. Lex said he got the idea after watching surgeons practice their skills on oranges. He explains how it works.
Now what this simulator does, if I was to start to burn the face, like it starts off light red as I'm high up in the skin. As I get deep in the skin, it goes darker. As you can see, it's now starting to go black. This means like I've actually burnt through the skin and I'm in the muscle area.
If designer Tony Rhodes had his way, this could be the office desk of the future, ergonomically designed to reduce neck and backache. Already he's got a sponsor and manufacturing companies interested in the design. He says,
the good thing about it is it reclines as well, which is so you can work in a quite a nice, comfortable recline position. You can type things out and basically do what you want to do, and it's quite simple to get back upright again.
But if that's all a bit too radical for your office, this young designer has other ideas of how to rearrange your workplace. Yazza Hussain has designed a multifunction modular system which configures over 30 settings. It offers different types of seating, table storage and shelving. With more product design consultancies based in London than nearly any other European city, South Bank University believes that the capital is now the leading product design city in Europe. It's getting a reputation as a hothouse for young talent. The very best of the creations will go on display in upcoming exhibitions. For an especially lucky few, there have already been the offers of jobs as professional designers. Spencer Duval, training hard for the Olympic Games in Sydney. Running 100 miles and weight training are all part of a normal week for a top 3,000 metre steeplechaser like him. Until recently, spending weeks training in the French Alps was also part of the routine, but now he has found a substitute for altitude training. For 7 months, Spencer has been sleeping in a low-oxygen tent. It's as though Spencer is sleeping up a mountain. The tent isn't sealed, so there's no danger of suffocating. The effect is to make his body produce more red blood cells to transport oxygen to the muscles. For an endurance athlete, more red blood cells means faster running. He's already noticed a difference in his fitness from using the low-oxygen tent. He's lost approximately half a stone or 3 kilograms in weight and is waking up in the morning feeling very fresh, resulting in his running more efficiently. Every 6 weeks, Spencer comes to nearby Staffordshire University for some more objective testing of his fitness. Physiologist Stephen Day put Spencer on the treadmill to measure his oxygen uptake. He's used to seeing greater efficiency in oxygen use in runners who have trained at altitude, but he's surprised by the changes in Spencer since he's been using the tent at home. Over the last 6 months or so, they've seen an increase in his ability to utilise oxygen, known as a VO2 max. This has increased from something in the region of 61 mils per kilogram to 79 mils per kilogram. The important improvement, though, is the one known as hematocrit, the amount of red blood cells in his body. That's increased by something in the region of 10%, from 40% overall to 44%. That means Spencer's blood is much more efficient at carrying oxygen to fuel his muscles. Spencer hoped that sleeping high and training low would help him steal a march on the all-powerful Kenyan steeplechasers and put him among the medals in Sydney. The results speak for themselves. No strangers to the adversarial nature of politics between elected members of Parliament and the peers in the House. British politicians rarely enjoy the opportunity to put their rivalry to a test of combat outside it. Except, that is, in the annual tug-of-war match between teams from the House of Lords and the House of Commons, held within the imposing shadow of the Palace of Westminster. It's a tradition of some 12 years standing and is very much a part of the parliamentary calendar. It's entirely apolitical and raises some £120,000 for Macmillan Cancer Relief. Since its inception, the team from the House of Lords has remained undefeated, and this year proved to be no exception. After a massive struggle and some very tense moments, the Lords once again proved to be the stronger team. So far, fundraising by the event has topped the target for the cancer research charity, and with more donations still to come, the figure is expected to rise over the coming weeks. Nick Young of the Macmillan Cancer Relief Fund appreciates how lucky they are to have supporters on both sides of the House and on both sides of the House of Lords. Cancer is an issue that touches everyone. It can just as easily touch members of Parliament as ordinary people. The House of Lords wasn't about to give away its formula for success. As for the Commons team members, they're already looking towards next year. But as Britain's Defence Secretary analysed the team's tactical manoeuvres, he's already certain of one thing. He says the secret is never training, that it's necessary to arrive here as a complete amateur. Also taking part in the tug-of-war tournament were teams from the Army and one made up of women members of Parliament. And although it may look like just a bit of fun and game playing, interest in the sport is growing. Tug-of-war was previewed at the Sydney Olympics, and it's hoped it will be introduced as an official sport in 2004. And that's all for today. Join us again next time for a postcard look at interesting people, places, the arts and curiosities.